So, I don't generally get into personality commentary, only really briefly bringing this up as an example of two things that I think are interesting in a broader conversation about vegan advocacy, and one is, hey, your advocacy sucks, don't do that, and two is that trolls are a lost cause. A lot of people will criticise advocates who have a more confrontational style of activism as creating barriers that the people that they're interacting with wouldn't be able to get past, and therefore their advocacy not being very effective. A typical example of this here on YouTube is Vegan Gains. A lot of people will criticise his style of activism and say you'll never make people vegan by bullying them into it. Well, personally I take the view that the best kind of activism is one that's genuine. I don't think you should be putting on an act when you interact with people so much, or generally people are wise to when they're being deceived in some way or when you're playing a part, and if someone isn't being genuine with you, that's probably when people are going to be less receptive to you. So my style of activism is being myself, which means being measured and calm and I guess very reasonable. That seems to work with me when I interact with people face to face, but I dare say that the style of activism that someone like Vegan Gains brings to the table is one that really shakes people up a bit more and gets a lot more attention, and that's something that a broader audience is going to be interested in and therefore listen to. Hunter Avallone published his first video on veganism that I was able to find many years ago, and to me it's not because it gets under my skin, but just because of the tone of the whole thing. It's just really unwatchable, and that's just me, my taste, my humour. It just, I don't know, it seems a bit sort of cringy, perform angst. I don't know, I don't dig it. I mean, it was a long time ago, so I'm not going to try and judge him on the quality of that work now.
I'm not gonna lie, being an omnivore, but more of a carnivore kind of omnivore, actually makes me really happy. That's right, vegans, I love eating meat. Steak, turkey, bacon, beef, turkey, bacon, you name it, I love it. But it goes even further than that. I don't like eating meat just because it tastes good. No, I like eating meat because I like that I'm actually eating animals. Sometimes when I'm driving down the highway, I purposely run over squirrels just so I can pull over and eat them. But apparently it turns out there's some people out there who want to end my ravenous meat fest. And apparently those people are called vegans, or as I like to call them, stupid idiots. So here's my beef with vegans.
I dare say he's grown up since then. I'm sure he probably doesn't communicate this way now, though I don't watch his content, so I don't know. Maybe it's something that he's a bit embarrassed by, the way they used to communicate. I don't know. Anyway, not my thing. Bit gross. But anyway, it's pretty clear what his view on veganism was at this point in time, some years ago, and that he's very ready and willing to have a pop at vegans. Clearly, he wasn't digging what we were putting out there. With that scene set, he made another video a year and a half ago, which kicked off a little bit of backlash from vegans. And you can see why vegans felt under attack. This is how Hunter explains the video when he responds to the backlash.
Weeks ago, I made a video about how liberalism was teaming up with veganism. I didn't actually criticize veganism in and of itself in this video, mostly just the awful conflation of feminism and veganism. Despite all this, I had the vegan community all over my beautiful white butt, with multiple butthurt, angry, and even violent responses from vegans who were so offended over the fact that I would dare make jokes about them. But none of the responses I received were quite as angry, triggered, stupid, and pathetic than the response I received from Vegan Gains.
So yeah, loads of vegans roasted him. Hunter did not appreciate their style of advocacy, but I mean, you can see why vegans felt like they were under attack, though. The title of the video was Vegans, It's Time to Stop, and this is how he introduced it. So,
everybody, it's Hunter Avallone here, and welcome to another video. Today, we are talking about vegans. More specifically, vegans. It's time to stop. Now, am I getting on camera today to tell you how all vegans are terrible? Of course not. Not all vegans are crazy, and I already know I'm going to get comments like, well, Hunter, I'm a vegan and I'm not a bad person. Sure, you aren't a bad person because you're vegan. You are a bad person because you leave desperate comments like that. Veganism was once a bad thing. Now, it's a horrible thing. Veganism has always had its fair share of crazies, but lately, crazy vegans have teamed up with crazy liberals to concoct a recipe for suicidal thoughts. According to
I don't know, it seems like a dig at veganism and not one specifically about liberalism plus veganism. That kind of feels like, to me, that feels like an explanation that was invented after the fact. Anyway, loads of vegans responded to him, roasted him about the video, and Hunter did not appreciate their style of advocacy. But in this extract where he's responding to his least favourite advocate, his least favourite activist response, we see a glimmer of growth.
Behavior, but morality is a sliding scale. I never said animals have no value, simply that humans are more intrinsically valuable. Just if the fetus is not a fully developed baby does not take away from the fact that this is a human life. Just like a bird egg is not a fully developed bird, yet it has the same value as one. I am absolutely against the needless killing of animals. Obviously, if humans were running around killing animals for fun, I think there's a problem with that. You're framing me completely dishonestly. We may disagree on what constitutes needless, but I think killing animals for human consumption is enough of a need. I understand the treatment towards these animals is not good, but I don't think anyone should be prohibited from consuming meat. Meanwhile,
so since posting that first video, Hunter has graduated from a trollish bore to sort of lazily pro-welfare. I say lazily because he's not doing anything about it, but his views on animals are that, we ought not abuse them. Even though I still think his video was specifically bashing vegans. I mean, it is called Vegans, It's Time to Stop. And, you addressed us, so don't be mad when we respond and say, no, we're not going to stop. Anyhow, Hunter doesn't really answer Vegan Gains' question as to why he's not vegan. Well, he claims that he values animals, but not above human life. But he must be aware that vegans are alive. In this response video that he made, he features clips of Hench Herbivore, and obviously loads of clips of Richard, and I don't think there's any reason to believe that either of these guys are the picture of deficiency. But at this point, despite still taking jabs at vegans, his position has evolved since the original video that he made. But he's clearly not fully examined his point yet, as we see in his explanation of why he isn't vegan, which kind of dances around the subject more rather than actually explaining his position. He says that he doesn't want to hurt animals. He is an advocate for saving lives where he can. He just seems a little bit confused about the health side of things, which, I mean, he can't be, given that he's responding to living and healthy vegans. Anyhow, he has received, in response to his video, a tornado of vegans responding, and some of them responding with more confrontational, direct reproach. How does he feel about that advocacy?
Cells. Again, I've already explained why you're a major hypocrite for trying to use these factors to determine the value of a life, but as I've said before, I agree that animals are often mistreated. I've seen some videos of the way these animals are treated in factories, and it's very disturbing, but screaming at me for valuing human life over animal lives, making cheesy vegan videos every day, and trying to guilt trip other people to subscribe to your ideology won't do anything to stop the animal cruelty that occurs. Why not advocate for more legal guidelines ensuring animals are treated properly? I don't entirely disagree with you on the way animals are treated. I just think that you're not doing anything substantial to stop it. You ask me why I'm not vegan. I'm not trying to debate veganism with you or anyone. I was simply calling out the leftist nonsense for using veganism to push an agenda. Secondly, as I've stated before, human life is intrinsically more valuable than that of an animal's life. I honestly don't care. You can be vegan all you want, but you cannot conflate killing animals to sustain human life with killing children. unborn or not. You keep bringing up sentience or development, but when it comes right down to the DNA that all humans share, we are intrinsically more valuable than animals.
Hates it. He's not at all convinced that he should go vegan by what people have said. He seems kind of irritated by people who've spoken to him. He maintains that he doesn't hate veganism or hate people for being vegan, but he definitely has not responded positively to the advocacy that he's experienced. However, I do think that being pressed in this way has clearly pushed him to reflect. That is the advocacy that he's experienced. That is the kind of activism that he seems to have had most interaction with. It's challenged him to answer for his own actions, which he kind of struggled to do. And it does seem that he's possibly carried those negative feelings that he's responding to here immediately after. And those challenges to his beliefs have perhaps echoed back to him in quieter times ever since, once he's had time to digest and distance himself emotionally from the challenge and the conflict. Perhaps they've made him a little uncomfortable and driven him to some self-examination. Now, from what I can gather, Hunter and I don't seem to agree on very much in general. Just basing that on thumbnails and titles, as someone who's not really watched anything of his content and I don't really know what he stands for particularly, other than, I mean, it could all be clickbaity stuff to be fair, but looking at the titles of his videos, no, I don't get that vibe. I don't think we necessarily have much in common, but we do seem to, as of today, agree about the treatment of animals and the necessary steps that one must take. Hunter Avallone has posted on Twitter that after consideration, I have decided to embrace a vegan lifestyle. I'm still sorting some aspects out, but overall, I can no longer contribute to the suffering of animals at the hands of the meat industry. Veganism is ethically consistent with my views, plus it's healthier. I applaud this message, and I wish Hunter the very best of luck. I do love to see personal growth and people being honest in challenging themselves and changing their point of view about something that I'm sure he would comfortably admit at this point maybe he was wrong about in the past. It's hard to publicly announce that you have been wrong, and I do respect people being able to really reflect and interrogate their own values and their own views and publicly express the opposite to an audience that, I mean, his audience will have been formed of people who watched the old videos and liked them. So it's quite a bold move to now say to that audience that he's gathered over the years, actually the opposite. So to conclude, who knows what kind of advocacy works? It probably depends on the individual. And I take this as an example of times when a kind of advocacy that people often say would never work and we mustn't do and vegans must never do, which is that more confrontational style, does seem to have had an impact, does seem to have planted seeds and given Hunter reason to reflect. I would like to hear his own summary of how this came to be. I'm on the outside of the situation. I don't have access to his thoughts or what might happen in his life and in his head. But on the outside, it looks to me like his main exposure to vegan activism and the vegan movement has been by having conflicts with confrontational vegans who are sort of completely unapologetic advocates. He hated the way that people made him feel. He hated the way that they spoke to him. He hated the way that the specific challenges that they raised. He felt misunderstood, and he pushed back against it initially. But clearly he was unable to ignore the quality within those arguments and the challenges that they posed. That's how it looks to me from the outside, as though being initially offended, although it would be probably, maybe he would phrase it a different way, I'm not trying to speak for him, but being initially offended or challenged is what forced him to self-examine his position and led to this evaluation of how he ought to behave in order to be ethical and morally consistent. And here we are now with Hunter Avallone announcing that he's becoming a vegan. It's wonderful news. I'm not in his head though. I'd love to hear his breakdown of what actually inspired him. There could have been some other ingredient that I haven't seen because I don't live his life. Oh. Let's see, how will the gallery of the most vocally opinionated members of the public respond? I'm not on Twitter, so this is a little bit like a holiday for me. Okay, oh, it's funny. Yep. So we've got some positive responses, that's good. Oh, lol, no, helpful. Even if I weren't vegan, I'd still eat all kinds of seafood. What? So even if I went vegan, I wouldn't be vegan. Well done. Mostly chew bees. Oh, come on, bud. What a strange thing to say. Maybe your concern should be reconsidered. Oh dear. I decided to go vegetarian today. Oh, well done. It's a start. That comes from a very privileged person in a very privileged country. There are millions in the world who live where... What's this got to do with it? Okay. Quickly on the subject of privilege. If you recognise that you have privilege, you realise that you can't just stop having privilege. If you are a privileged person living in a country where you have the option to make ethical choices, then you shouldn't think that you're being entitled and oppressing someone for exercising that privilege. You should kind of feel like exercising that privilege to do the right thing is your moral obligation. If you're in a privileged position where you are able to make more ethical choices, then don't you have to make those more ethical... Isn't that an argument that you should make those more ethical choices? I mean, the person saying this is as privileged as anybody else in this comment section might be. And it's like they're saying, oh, I'm privileged and I'm not doing the right thing. You're privileged and you are doing the right thing. Therefore, you are an entitled, privileged... Like, what? What's the common sense in that? You can't help if you're a person who's born with a certain type of privilege, especially if that privilege is being born in a country and living in that same country. If you have that privilege, you can either use that privilege, which in this case is having a choice of whether you consume ethically or unethically. That's the privilege, and you can then choose to consume unethically, which is still a privileged choice to make, or you can choose to consume ethically, which is also a privilege that you're able to make the choice, but surely is what you should do. That's using your privilege for good rather than using your privilege selfishly. This is an argument against yourself. Grow up. Well, I can never see myself going vegan. I'm glad that you're supporting someone else doing it. You will be vegan one day. Thank you, my friend. As a progressive, I will continue to eat meat. Sorry we have our guilty pleasure. Well, you've got a lot to feel guilty about then. Please reflect on that guilt and change. I mean, there's Vosh, of course, talking all the talk, but walking nowhere. 50 never eaten meat. Not really, it's mostly agriculture. Okay. Veganism causes deforestation. Come on. You're better than that. Actually, 75% of... Yeah, that's fine. Straighten it out. Don't go vegan, you'll die one day. Oh, okay. I guess given that meat is the route to immortality, this kind of debunks the theory that our ancestors all ate meat. Checkmate, paleo. I admire the idea of not hurting animals. At least the large one. What? What? Why? Why? I don't know what that means. The bigger you are, like, the more of you there is, the more you mean. Is it sentience sort of by the square inch? What are you talking about? But it's repeatedly been shown to be so volatile. No, it hasn't. I'm sorry, Heather. I'm sorry you've been lied to. You don't want to be fooled. So oops. There's nothing wrong with going vegan if you know how to include vital nutrients. On the moral side, a lot of plants are fine. Oh, come on. Just take some responsibility. It's good. You're lucky you've got that system to catch all the flack for you. If the whole world was vegan, 75% less land would be... Yeah, that's cool. Thank you, Michael Foley. Be sure to bookmark the Restoration Health Vegan Recovery group for when your health falls apart. I've been vegan for 10 years. I've never even heard of that group. And your name is Carnivore is Vegan. So, I mean, a paradox. Ah yes, I'm sure Hunter is eager to take advice from a person who accuses everyone who's mean to them of gaslighting and the whole website. Oh god, that was terrible. Yeah, that's enough of that. Sorry mate, you'll get through it. Yeah, anyway, best of luck, Hunter. I'm sure there are so many more people that you would rather go to, but if for any reason you do have a need for guidance of any kind, I, among many other people, would be very happy to support you if you're making a change to veganism. If you're not sure about anything, you really don't have to go it alone. There's a lot of people who've been here, sort of hardened veterans who kind of know how it works. And that goes to anyone. If you're struggling with veganism, if you're not sure how to go about it, if you're curious or whatever, I'm very happy to help. Yeah, just as a reflection, really happy to see growth in a person. And to all of those out there who are having a troll party, I'd love to make the same video about you one day. So yeah, thank you, Hunter.